Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? Welcome to another edition of the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. My name is TJ Jones. Thanks for checking out the podcast. I really do appreciate it. This is a special Q&A edition of the State of the Saints podcast, where I take questions from listeners of the podcast. And for everybody that's sending questions, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time out. Thank you for your love and your support. But before I get started with the questions, I was looking at the Herd with Colin Cowherd. Now, for those that don't know who Colin Cowherd is, he has a radio show, and he's also on Fox Sports 1. And he was talking about the new rule that allows coaches to review pass interference calls. Now, we all know what this is about. It all comes from the NFC Championship game where Tommy Lee Lewis was running a wheel route and Drew Brees throwing the ball. Roby Coleman hit him. They didn't call pass interference. That play would have set the Saints up with a 1st and goal. Saints, all they had to do was take some knees, kick a field goal, get up out of there. They headed to Atlanta. But it didn't happen that way. And Colin Cowherd has a problem with the new rule being implemented. And he has some very, very controversial things to say about the New Orleans Saints players, especially when it comes to their secondary. Check it out.
The New Orleans Saints have really weak corners in a division with really good wide receivers. Don't you think New Orleans could use a little leeway on the clutching and grabbing stuff? Because they got the weakest corners in their division, and that division's got nothing but great wide receivers. They're going to need leeway the next couple of years. As Drew Brees gets older and older, the offense isn't quite as explosive. Had a couple of guys leave. New Orleans is going to need a little leeway on those corners. As Dean Blandino said yesterday, when you react emotionally and then have an owners meeting and rush something right into the market, right into the game, it's generally not a good decision long term.
Some very controversial stuff by Colin Cowherd. First off, I got a little message for Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd, everybody knows about you, man. Like, honestly, everybody knows that you know absolutely nothing about sports. You don't know anything about sports. You show up maybe like about 6 o'clock in the morning, West Coast time. You go to the prep room and all of your little interns and your statisticians, they tell you what's important in sports. And they tell you what angle to approach this. I can tell you that Colin Cowherd does not watch Saints football. Yeah, the New Orleans Saints defense stunk it up the first half of the season. But during the season, the New Orleans Saints defense improved tremendously. Improved so much that one Skip Bayless from Undisputed had this to say about the Saints defense.
I think this has happened very quietly, and most people have not fixated on this. But do you realize over the last 9 games, the New Orleans defense is second in points allowed only to the Bears? It's second. It's been extraordinary. It leads the NFL over the last 9 games in takeaways with 18. So they are taking the ball away like crazy.
One of the best defenses in the league last year. And he also had this to say about cornerback Marshawn Lattimore.
But is that kid not? I think he's the best corner in football.
Good defense. Best cornerback in football. I don't know what the hell Colin Cowherd is talking about, but that shows he knows absolutely nothing about the New Orleans Saints. And I think that this rule is a good thing. Now, he did bring up, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He did bring up a game when the Saints played the Steelers and Drew Brees threw the ball to Alvin Kamara down the field and they called pass interference on Joe Hayden. Now, I'll give him that. That wasn't pass interference. And he said that the Saints would have lost that game. But here is the issue. He brought that up, but he didn't mention that happened in the first quarter of the game. The first quarter. The play that did not send the Saints to the Super Bowl, the 9 call, happened in the fourth quarter. So Colin Cowherd, nice try. I understand what you're trying to do, but people like me, we hip to what you do, and we know our football, unlike yourself. But it's time for the Q&A edition of the State of the Saints podcast. Once again, thank you very much for submitting your questions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. The first question comes from Anthony Lewis. Anthony asks, do you think Drew Brees has enough left in the tank? Yes, I do. I do think that Drew Brees has one season left in him. Okay. I am a firm believer that Drew Brees is going to retire after this season. Yes, I'm saying it because once again, I say it all the time on the podcast. When he broke that passing record, when he gave that speech in the locker room, the Washington Redskins game, he said, that's not the reason why I came back. He said he came back for a bigger purpose. Why would a person that wasn't thinking about retiring say something like that? That has stuck in my mind, and I really, truly believe that Drew Brees would have retired from football if the Saints would have went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl. I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. I'm in no way saying that would have happened. But I do think this is going to be Drew Brees' last season. Rather the Saints go to the Super Bowl or not, this is the last year of his contract. I don't think the Saints would have brought back Teddy Bridgewater. I think the writing is on the wall. I think that Drew Brees has one good season left in him. I don't think Drew Brees needs to play anymore after this season. I think the Saints need to move on. I mean, it's not the most popular thing to say, but I think the Saints need to move on. I don't want Drew Brees to end up being like Eli Manning. I don't want him to be like that. I don't want him to be like that guy who everybody wants to run out of town, that's appreciative of all the things that he's done. But it was a little bit too late for him. He didn't realize it. The organization don't want to accept it. I don't want that. So I would like to see Drew Brees have a great season this year, get the Saints to the Super Bowl, win it, and go out like the champion that he is. But thank you very much for your question. I really do appreciate it. The next question, this question comes from Jared Anderson. And Jared asks, will Bridgewater be a legitimate successor to Brees after this season? Brees is still one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league, but he limits our offense with his lack of deep thrown balls. Thank you very much, Jared, for your opinion and your question. First off, I think it's no surprise Drew Brees has lost arm strength, but that's not shocking. I mean, the man is 40 years old. I mean, you're not going to be as strong as you were in your 20s. I mean, Drew Brees can still get the ball where it needs to be. A lot of nickel and diamond, pennying and quartering going on in the Saints offense these days. But to answer your question about Teddy Bridgewater, I think I brought this up on a podcast maybe like a couple episodes back. I do think that Teddy Bridgewater is a good successor to Drew Brees. I think the only person that can stop Teddy Bridgewater is Teddy Bridgewater. I need to see more from Teddy. It seems like when the lights are the brightest, it seems like he kind of shrinks. I never seen him perform in a big game. I never seen him win a big game. It was always he was good, but not good enough in some of those primetime games. Even at Louisville, I think when everybody was talking about Teddy Bridgewater being a Heisman Trophy winner, I mean, he had maybe 4 or 5 good games where it was like, man, why are we even having this Heisman Trophy ceremony? Give it to Teddy Bridgewater. And then all of a sudden, when everybody started talking about him, I mean, he folded quicker than a cheap tent. And then during his pro day, man, everybody was talking about Teddy Bridgewater, man. He can be the first pick in the draft. The Texans need to draft this guy. And then all of a sudden he had his pro day and he stunk it up. So I need to see more out of Teddy Bridgewater before I say that he is a legitimate successor to Drew Brees. He can make all the throws. He's a smart kid. He's funny. I mean, we all know the type of presence he has in the locker room. I mean, that dance that he did sweeping the nation. But I need to see more. I need to see his play sweep the nation. You know what I'm saying? I need to see him do some good things on the big stage before I say that he is the successor to Drew Brees. But thank you very much, Jared, for your question. And now the final question. This question comes from Diana Gibbs. And Diana Gibbs asks, should the Saints still get another tight end in the NFL draft? Well, thank you very much, Diana. Thank you very much for your question. Should the Saints get another tight end in the NFL draft? No. The Saints shouldn't get another tight end in the NFL draft. I think that they got that position filled with Jared Cook. For those that don't know who Jared Cook is a very, very good tight end. The Saints gave him a 2-year, $15.5 million contract, and I think he is the void that the Saints have been missing at that position for a long time, ever since Jimmy Graham left. I think that Jared Cook is going to do big things for the New Orleans Saints. Hopefully he can stay healthy throughout the season. But I do think that the Saints need to go in a different direction. I think they need to try to get another pass rusher. I think they need to focus on that. It seems like they've been trying to get another pass rush. I don't know what's going on with that. That makes me very discouraged about Marcus Davenport. I've seen flashes from Marcus. Of course, we seen that Redskin game, that Viking game. We know this kid can be something special, but it seems like he can't stay on the field. He can't stay healthy. So I think the Saints are a little bit nervous about that. We seen them try to get Robert Quinn, but the Cowboys snatched him up. I'm not too upset about that because Robert Quinn ain't did nothing since 2014. But I do think that the Saints have somebody in Trey Hendrickson that can come in, that can play. He has to stay healthy. But I do think that the Saints need to try to go get a pass rush. I think they need to get another player in the secondary in the later rounds. And I do believe they still need another running back. Now, I know that we got Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray, nothing's wrong with him. We also have Dwayne Washington. When he came in the game, he did some things. But I think that the Saints need a big bruising back. I think they need somebody that can be an every down back that can relieve Alvin Kamara. Latavius Murray, I mean, he's faster than Mark Ingram. He reminds me a little bit of Mark Ingram, a little bit more elusive. But I do think that the Saints may need to get another running back. I can't say that Dwayne Washington can step up as Latavius Murray does not play up to snuff. I think the Saints need to get somebody that can get between the tackles, that can make people miss, and also make things a little bit better for Alvin Kamara. But this has been the State of the Saints podcast. Check out the State of the Saints podcast on YouTube, youtube.com. Search the State of the Saints podcast. We are 1,000 subscribers and running. Thank you very much. We're trying to get to 10,000 now. And just subscribe to the channel if this is your first time listening. Also, the State of the Saints podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio.com. Till next time, all I have to say is, who dat?